Hello everyone, this is Leo from the Monkeys Making Misplays, and now that Divine Z's first set, Fated Clash, is officially released, we wanted to start doing set reviews to help both new and old players understand what is in each set. We will be doing one nation per video to better spread out the cards and not end up with an hour-long video. We will be providing timestamps for each of the 5 categories we've divided the cards into, which may change depending on the set, but for now those categories are New Ride Lines, Quick Start Deck Support, which will change to Divine Z Support after this set, Overdress Support, which is support for any of the ride lines from Overdress, Generic Support, and then finally we have Reprints and Promos. Alright, whether you starting with this part or have just finished the previous installment, we're going to discuss the cards in Lyrical Monasterio. This nation also received a Divine Skill user like Brandgate, Dragon Empire, and Keter Sanctuary, but this will be the last Divine Skill user we're going to see until we get the last 2, or I guess last 3 in set 2. To be fair, I think that this is the weakest of the Divine Skill units. I know some people think that she has some potential, but personally, I think that she might need a little bit more help to properly become a good deck. But the deck we're talking about is the Fated one of Ever-Changing Christrain, which has a total of 7 cards in the set that is going to show us that not every lyrical deck is built the same. I mean, I think after some of the great decks that came out of Trick or Treat, Christrain is such a drop in quality, in my opinion. You know, we had Lever Sours, we had Sienna, we had Fennel, we had the updates to both Erminia and Fortia. There was just so many good decks that came out of Trick or Treat that, I don't know, I just feel like Christrain is such a fall from grace. But, you know, what can we do? We'll start with the right line with the grade 1 Tifane, that when wrote upon by Musette will reveal the top card of the deck, call it to rearguard if it's a grade 2 or less normal unit, or add it to hand if it's not. No other ability here, so there's no like plus 5k or plus 2k like we've seen in some of the other ride lines. But hey, it's a pretty good ability. You just get a free card, either a unit on board or a card in hand. Then let's talk about the grade 2 Musette, which is the one that needs to ride over Tifane. That has pretty much the exact same effect, except now you can call it grade 3 or less. And again, no other ability besides the ride ability. I know not every ride line has, you know, been like incredible, right? Maybe we've seen some okay ride lines, but this one seems a little bit lackluster. I mean, it's just a free call. I feel like there's decks that do way more than that. I mean, if we look at something like Sarab Sales from the Keter Sanctuary that we just talked about, his was literally just like a draw or call a card, draw a card. I mean, that seems better, I guess, in my opinion, because at least you're trading or you're calling a card that you will be using to draw a card. Where in this case, you might not want to call the card, or it might just not be as worthwhile. But now let's talk about the main girl herself, because that's kind of where we need to put we need that for reference, right? And that's Christrain. Her effect allows you to counterblast 1 to choose one of her effects and use it. If you have 4 or more units with different names, you can choose 2 instead of 1. If you have 5 different named units, you can use all the effects. And the effects are, starting with the first one, draw a card and energy charge 3. The second one being give a unit plus 15k power. And the last one is to give Christrain herself a crit. Again, these effects aren't awful. And if the Divine Skill was better, or if some of her support that we're going to talk about was a little bit better, I think I would have played her myself. But we'll see as we go along that there's a big flaw that I don't think this deck is going to be able to breach without more support. But let's look at Divine Skill. The Divine Skill says that at the end of the battle she attacked a grade 3 or greater unit, you can return all of your rearguards to hand, then call a unit card from hand to rearguard and make that unit's power and crit the same as Christrain's. So that's kind of why we see that 15k power and that crit effect, where they want to make Christrain as big as you can. It's just this don't get me wrong, this is a cool ability. I just don't think this is a Divine Skill ability. You know, I don't think this is worth a, you know, once per game. That's the thing, right? That's the thing about these Divine Skills, is that they're a once per game ability, right? I think if they wanted to just add this ability on top and make it so that it's like a CB and a Soul Blast, I think this ability would have just been fine as a normal ability. But instead, what happened is that Christrain is locked to 3 attacks, which is going to lower her power. I mean, I think a lot of the lyrical cards are really good, but being locked to 3 attacks is not going to be worthwhile. I mean, we've seen that pretty much to survive in the metagame, you have to be a multi-attacking deck, right? But let's move on to the other support, starting with the grade 1 Albina, which is just a 5k power and shield unit that requires you to have a Christrain Vanguard. Simple effect, and we've seen this in both Varga and Raziel, so we're not going to linger on this too much. Then we've got another grade 1, and that is Raum, that gains plus 5k when it boosts if your Vanguard is crit strain, and then when it boosts crit strain, if you have 4 more different units, 4 more units with different names, you can Energy Blast 3 to give her a guard restriction. If your opponent were to use anything but a Sentinel, they would have to call 3 cards with different grades at the same time. So a 0, 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, you get it, as long as they're different grades. Your Vanguard's almost always going to get PG'd, but in the case that she doesn't, I think this is quite a strong guard restriction. Definitely a good card, but again, we come back to the big downside of 3 attacks. You know, if Crit Strain could restand, I would say that, God, this card is incredible, but this ability only triggers when it boosts Crit Strain, and it doesn't work on like the rear guard you call. So even if you're able to somehow call this during the 4th attack, you know, it just doesn't do much, right? Unfortunately, I think you're probably playing like 2 or 3 of these in your deck, just because that guard restriction is still pretty cool. Then we have the grade 2 Ans that has 2 abilities. The first triggers when she's placed on rearguard. If your Vanguard is Crit Strain, you can counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 3 to look at top 5 and call a unit card with a different name from the units on your Vanguard or rearguard. This means you can do 5 attacks on your Divine skill turn, but I don't know if that 1 turn of aggro counteracts the loss of it for the rest of the game. Then Anne's second ability gives plus 10k power when she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, and you have 4 more units with different names, so she's a good attacker even if you can't use the Divine skill. Good card, you know, she's the triple rare for the deck, or for the Divine skill user. We've seen that almost all of them got a triple rare. Then we have 1 more unit, which is a grade 3 Wizme, that on attack of a grade 3 or greater unit can counterblast 1 to gain plus 15 game power. Just a big power unit, but with Crit Strain having to play a lot of different names, you can easily get away with playing like 1 or 2 of these just to, you know, have the different names. I really want to like Crit Strain, don't get me wrong. I've actually grown a lot more fond of some of the lyrical decks. You know, I love playing Lever Sours, even though we never showed it on the channel. That deck I have personally. Armenia, I love. You know, as much as I make fun of Michu, I think she's a good deck that just, you know, is lacking some support, but we have confirmed support later on, so I'm hoping that helps her. I just think Crit Strain is unfortunately maybe a victim of other decks issues. You know, I think that maybe Bushiroad doesn't want to make such strong lyrical decks anymore, so they're kind of lowering the power. But with that, we have finished the new ride line section. We're going to move on to the quick start deck support, which for Lyrical Monasterio is for Marlene. She received 4 cards in the set, which makes her match also largest in the way of support. We'll start with the ride line. The grade 1 is Lorica, who when brought upon by Louise can choose a grade 2 or less normal unit from hand, call it to rearguard. Then if you call a card, you get to search your deck for 1 card with the same name as it and add it to your hand. And then she also gains plus 5k if your Vanguard is Marlene. We've seen this effect in all the ride lines. Following that, we have Louise, which we just saw in the grade 1, who when brought upon by a Marlene lets you choose a rearguard and bounce it to hand. And if you do, you can call Louise to rearguard. She also gains plus 5k or plus 10k shield if you have a Vanguard with Marlene. I think this ride line is so much better than fucking Crit Strains. And I don't know, like if these were switched, I think that'd be a lot cooler. But you know, like the cards are already out, nothing we can do about it. Next up, we have Seria, which gains plus 10k when placed during the battle phase if your Vanguard is Marlene. A simple effect that just costs nothing and provides some decent power. If you're trying to upgrade a quick start deck, that's a really good card if you're playing Marlene. Then we've got the backup grade 3 for Marlene, which is Respino. She can counterblast 1 when returned to hand to draw a card. So, you know, similar to a lot of the other effects, Marlene bounces a unit every time she attacks, so pretty good card. And then when she attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 to give her plus 5k. But if you Soul Blast a Marlene, she gains plus 15 instead of 5k. So we got more power and card draw, which is always good. So this card should be included if you have it. You know, she's just a good attacker. You bounce her, you draw a card, then you get to just get a 28k attacker. If you're Persona Riding, you get a 38k attacker. Good card all around. With that, we're done with the quick start deck support. We're going to talk now about the Overdress support, which was for the original Lyrical start deck, Kairi. And that is, God, these names, Huolette. She has 2 effects. The first triggers when she's placed on rearguard. If you have a grade 3 good or Vanguard with Kairi in its name, she gains boost and plus 5k. Her second ability triggers at the end of your turn and requires you counterblast 1, put her into Soul. You then draw a card and bounce rearguards equal to every 2 grades of your Kairi Vanguard. A good card that helps you protect your rearguards and is going to be a decent booster. You know, you get a 15k booster. You don't have to worry about bouncing her hand because she'll move herself to Soul and then she'll bounce stuff. Obviously, this is targeted for the grade 4 Kairi, but it looks like a lot of the original start decks. That's where they're kind of trying to support. I mean, we've seen that they're even trying to support Magnolia Elder, not supporting Magnolia Mask, even though I feel like a lot of people are still sticking to the Magnolia Mask. I mean, I got a promo, and some of the stuff we'll talk about in the Stoicheia video, I will say probably works better in the Mask deck. But with that, we're done with the Overdress support. Now we're going to move on to the generic support. Again, we're going to start this section with the Cycler, which for Lyrical Monasterio is Presia? Yeah. Again, similar to the ones from set 10, when it's discarded from hand while writing from the right deck, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to draw a card. And unlike those original Cyclers, you can also use this ability when the card is used to guard, which means you get to replace it for pretty much free, as long as your deck doesn't use energy. Worthwhile cards. However, these Cyclers don't return themselves to the bottom of the deck like the old ones do, so you're going to have to find another way to get these back once you use their effects, right? And then they've got a on-place ability. So when Presia is placed on rearguard, if you Persona Road, you can either Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to choose one of your units, and until it turns it gets plus 5k, and if you choose a rearguard, you can return it to hand at the end of turn. I think this is a pretty good effect. You know, most Lyrical decks are going to want it, especially since you're not playing... most Lyrical decks aren't using energy, so why not use this Cycler, especially if you can't afford the... the Festival Collection Cycler, Valshavlan, I think is her name, because that card is way too expensive. I'm hoping that Bushiroad sees that they're really expensive and reprints those first Cyclers. I know we have some confirmed for that new Festival Collection set, but I don't know if Valshavlan is confirmed. But with that out of the way, let's move on to the Grade 1 cycle, which for Lyrical Monasterio is Felilina. This Grade 1 unit can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 if you Persona Road. When it boosts a rearguard, choose one of your Vanguards, and it gets all of your rearguards get plus 5k until end of turn. Then at the end of battle, you put her on the bottom of the deck. A slightly different version of Valshavlan, except you get to give all of your rearguards plus 5k instead of just your front row. I think if you can find room for it, I would play at least 2 in most Lyrical Monasterio decks, unless you're playing some sort of archetype that is hyper specific. So, you know, maybe something like Siana might not want to play this. Powerful Armenia, Fortia might not want to play this. Decks that are a little bit too specific, but I could definitely see you slotting like a copy of this in Petralka, maybe 2 of these in Kyrie, because it'll get rid of itself from board. So Marlene, definitely. I think you could obviously play this in Chris Train. Pretty good card. I would definitely recommend picking this up. Then we've got next card, which is Regretta, who can Energy Blast 4 when she attacks a Vanguard to choose a front row rearguard and return it to hand. Then she gains plus 5k. If you care about bouncing units, or you just need to clear up your rearguard circles, this card's not awful, especially if you aren't using energy. Maybe Kyrie might want to use this because the support card they gave her doesn't use energy at all, so why not? I mean, you're not going to use that energy for anything else. This will give you a way to bounce your stuff. Then we've got 2 orders, just like every other nation. We got a Blitz and a normal order. The normal order allows you to Energy Blast 2 to choose 3 rearguards with different card names, and they get plus 5k until end of turn. Just some extra power. Again, if you're not using energy, it's pretty much free. It's better used than using 7 to draw a card. I feel like maybe they overdid it with 7. I feel like 5 would have been an okay number, because 7 is just a lot. 7 is so much. It's 70% of your energy. You know, it's so much. It's so much. I feel like 5 would have been much better, but nonetheless, let's talk about the Blitz order, which costs Energy Blast 2 and can be a 25k shield if one of your rearguards were put into a zone besides the rearguards circles. So, you know, drop, bind, bottom of the deck. So if you're dealing with a lot of removal, then you can play this card to have extra shield if you're, again, not playing energy. Then we've got the 3 cards that we got to talk about in every nation that are just pretty much copy-paste, except for the first one, and that is Nina, who is a Grade 1 that when it boosts, if you have 3 or more units with different names, you can Counterblast 1 and Energy Blast 2 to draw a card and gains plus 5k. Again, this ability is going to be the same across all the other versions, except that condition changes. So for this one, the condition is you have to have 3 or more units with different card names, which makes sense because it's for the Lyrical Monasterio decks in the set, which, you know, we've got Chris Train. Then the next Grade 1 is Lafferty, which when discarded from hand during the right phase, you call it to rearguard as rest. Same effect across all the other quick start decks. If you can't afford Cyclers, at least play something like this if you still want an effect like it. The last card we've got is a Grade 2 Selin that lets you Soul Blast 2 to draw a card when it's discarded from hand during the right phase. Again, same effect across all the quick start decks. If you can't afford Cyclers, why not play something like this? And with that, we are done with the generic section. We are now going to talk about the reprints and the promos. In this section, we've got 3 cards. The first one being the Overtrigger. Lyrical Monasterio is one of the nations that I've seen a lot of players not play their Overtrigger in, so maybe not the most worthwhile reprint. And it also gets reprinted in every Lyrical set, so like they're giving them away like candies. I think me and Kat have got like a total of like 15 of them. And, you know, we don't have that many Lyrical decks, you know, like we don't need that many at the same time. So it's good to get it reprinted, but it's not really expensive Overtrigger. So, you know, it's always nice, but not as cool as some of the other ones. Then the second reprint is the new PGs, which again, different art, different name, same effect. So it's just a reprint. It's just a way for making these effect PGs more accessible to newer players. I know that, you know, maybe I sound like a broken record if you've been watching all of these, but I've got to mention them, right? If someone's not watching every part, right, or they're just picking a part and watching that one, you know, I've got to act like everyone is coming in watching this video fresh. You know, I can make references to the other videos, but I don't want to just say, you know, like, oh, you know, just like this other one and just like this other one, and you know, this effect is the effect is the same as this other one, right? So I still got to talk about it. Then we've got a promo for this nation, and this is a new card, so we are going to talk about it, and that is the new magazine order for Kyoka, and that is Lyrical Shooting Star Special Issue, which for a CB lets you pick two normal units from your drop with grades less than or equal to your Vanguard and different grades, then call them to rearguard. Then if you have one or more units with grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3, you can play another Lyrical Shooting Star. But, you know, I'm not a Kyoka main. I did have the deck for like, I think it was like 3 days, because someone didn't want it, and I was like, sure, I'll pick it up. And then a buddy of mine was like, oh, I'll pick it up from you, so they got it right away. I think I played it with it like a total of like twice. I don't remember the deck being that great, but she's getting a new form, and then this promo is I'm assuming it's good. I mean, you get to play 2 orders, right, without your Vanguard needing to have that ability on it, which is pretty cool. We did pack 3 of these out of the boxes we've gotten, so a little unfortunate. Really wanted to get the Gargaons instead, but what can you do? That's just the luck of buying boxes. But with that, we are done with Lyrical Monasterio, and we are going to move on to the last section, which is Stoicheia. I hope to see you all there.